Hi, I'm Ali and this tutorial shows you how to make a basic bodice block. This is an updated video from my previous one. It's exactly the same block, exactly the same fit, but I think these instructions are much clearer. So this is what you'll make: a very basic, very unglamorous bodice sample, but you can use this for making all of your dress patterns afterwards. Make sure you check out creativebobbin.com, where you'll see on the resources page the full list of measurements and any calculations you need to make this block. First thing you need to do when making any block is take some accurate measurements. So the measurements that you need are your waist at the smallest part. Make sure the tape measure is nice and snug, and the bust at the fullest part. Don't pull too tight. For the next few measurements, just tie something around your waist at the smallest part, just anything that you've got handy. And you need to take a few measurements from this. The trickiest one is measuring from your neck to your waist point. You need to do it front and back. And what you need to do, I'm going to demonstrate all of these on myself because chances are you'll be doing it on yourself. So get the tape measure in position at the back and bring it over your shoulder, over the bust point and to the waist. And you need to take that total measurement. So for me, it's 88 centimetres. And then you need to look in a mirror. I'm going to have to move my arms to show you. You need to look in a mirror and find where the shoulder point is. It helps if you're wearing something that's got a seam on the shoulder. And just note what that measurement there is. So for me, it's 43 centimetres. So I know that my back, neck to waist measurement is 43, and I take that off the first measurement, which was 88. So I know that the front is 45. While you've got this around your waist, you just need a couple more measurements. So you need to measure the armhole, so where you would think a seam would be if you were to wear something with a sleeve. Don't measure it to where the armhole is if you're wearing something with quite a low armhole, but just where you think that seam would be comfortable, and measure that to where your waist is. You also need to measure the fullest part of your bust, where that point is, down to your waist. You need to take a neck measurement. You don't want this too tight. You just want to kind of sit the tape measure comfortably around your neck. For example, mine measures 38 centimetres, and I'm guessing I've got a pretty average size neck. So it's going to be about that. And then your shoulder measurement, you need to measure from the neck here, kind of where the tightest is you would want a neck opening. And you need to measure that to the end of your shoulder, where you would expect a seam to be if you had something with a sleeve. Mine measures 11.5 centimetres to give you a rough idea. I do have particularly narrow shoulders, so chances are yours will be bigger than that. Then you need to measure your chest width, which is kind of between where your bust and your shoulder is, and you just need to measure across side to side. If I measure on here, it's kind of roughly where the edge of my dress is. So if you put your arms forward, kind of where the crease goes there. So just measure side to side. Again, as an example, mine measures 32 centimetres, but I'm not particularly broad across here, so yours might be bigger. You need to do the same on the back, but probably like me, you can't get your arms up there to do it accurately. So if you haven't got someone else to measure it for you, just add 2 centimetres onto the front chest measurement as a rough guide, and you shouldn't be too far off. You can always adjust it once you try your sample on. Then the only other measurements that you need are your armhole depth and the dart width. So I find the armhole depth quite hard to measure, so I calculate it by taking the front neck to waist measurement and subtracting the waist to armhole measurement. So for me, that's 45 centimetres minus 21 centimetres, which gives me 24 centimetres. So I'm going to make a note of that as my armhole depth. And then the dart width is something that you can't measure. You need to calculate that. So take your bust measurement, divide it by your waist measurement, and then multiply that answer by 6, and that will give you your dart width. So that's it, you're ready to get started. There'll be a few more calculations along the way, but we'll do them as we draw up the block. So let's get started drawing up your bodice block. Just make sure that your paper's big enough. It needs to be a little bit wider than half of your bust measurement. And the length this way needs to be your front neck to waist measurement, and then allow a little bit of space top and bottom. So starting in the top left, you don't really need much space to the left, but just leave a few centimetres above it. And then what you need to do is you need to square across the top. This is why dot and cross paper is wonderful, because it just makes it so much easier. So square across the top and square down the side. I'm going to draw my lines as dark as I can so you can see them, but don't press too hard, because then if you make a mistake it makes it much harder to rub it out. So we've now got the top edge, and then this is our centre back line, so you can mark that centre back. And then the first measurement we need to do is across the top, and that's the total body width. So you need to take your bust measurement and add 2.5 centimetres onto that, or 1 inch, and then divide that whole number by 2. And then take that measurement and measure it across the top. And then do the same a fair way down at the bottom. And then you can join that line down here, and that is your centre front line. The next measurement you need is your back neck to waist measurement, and we're going to measure that down here. So you don't need to do any kind of calculation with that, it's just the exact measurement that you took. So measure it either side, and then join this across the bottom, and that's your waist line. Next you need to take your waist to armhole measurement, and you need to measure up from the bottom, measure it either side. You're always lucky when it works out on one of the lines naturally, so it's nice and easy to draw. And join that across, and that is your armhole line. We now need to mark some points on this armhole line. So from the centre back line, you need to measure across, and the calculation you need to do, you need to take your back width measurement, divide it by 2, and then add on 0.25 centimetres. So just measure that across from the centre back line over to here. And then once you've got that mark, just square up about 3/4 of the way. Just don't draw that line too heavy. And then you need to do the same on the front. So this measurement from the front is your chest width measurement plus your dart measurement, and then divide the total by 2. So for example, my chest measurement was 32 and my dart measurement was 7.6. I add those together, divide them by 2, and that gives me 19.8. So that's what I measure from the centre front line here. And then I just need to do the same and square up about 3/4 of the way, not too dark. And then once you've got these 2 points here, just find the midpoint. Mine measures exactly 12, so very easy to divide. Find that midpoint, and then just square down to the waistline here. The next thing you need to do is just find the midpoint on your back and on your front. So on your back, just measure from the centre back line to this new line that we've drawn, and divide that in half. So I've got 17.3. I'm going to use a calculator to make sure I don't get it wrong, and that gives me 8.65. So measure 8.65 or 8.6, can't get that accurate. Measure that across, and then square down to the waistline. And then just do the same on the front. So that measures 19.8, so a bit easier this time, so 9.9, and then square down. And then square up on this one also to just beyond this top line here. So this is your front dart position and this is your back dart position. So your front dart here, you need to work out where the top of the dart is. So you need to take your back neck to waist measurement and you need to subtract your front neck to waist measurement. So for mine, I had 43 on the back and 45 on the front, which gives me -2. If you get a minus number like me, you need to measure that upwards of that line. So -2 means that I need to measure 2 centimetres above that line. If you don't have a minus number, then just keep that line where it is. You don't need to do anything at all. And then you just need to square across just on the front here. So now you need to take your dart measurement that we worked out earlier. Mine was 7.6 centimetres. So divide that in 2, and then that measurement is what you need to measure either side of this front dart position. So I need to measure 3.8 centimetres either side. And then the measurement that you took from your waist to your bust point, you need to measure from the bottom here up on this line. And just mark the point here. And now you're ready to draw in your front dart. So join this point to the dart positions that you've put up here. And that's your front dart complete. Now you need to take your neck measurement and divide it by 5. And we're going to use that measurement to draw in the neck. So my measurement is 7.6. So I'm going to measure down from this point here on the top right, where the line is where I've done my dart. Or if you didn't have to change that line, just from that original top line, just measure down on the centre front line and mark that. And on the back, you're going to use that same measurement to go across the top line here. On the back, you need to measure down from the first point that you did on the top left. And you can now join those 2 points with a curve. And that is your back neck. And on the front, you need to do the same. You need to join this point here with the top of that dart with a curve. And that is your front neck. And now all we've got left to do is the shoulders and the armhole. So we need to mark where the position of the shoulder lines are going to be. So you need to take your armhole depth measurement that we calculated and you need to divide that by 5. So I get 5.6. I'm going to measure down from this top line 5.6 centimetres and I'm going to square across just this little bit here. So that's where our back shoulder point is. And that 5.6 measurement, you need to add 1.5 on. So for me, I get 7.1 and I need to measure 7.1 from this line here, this one at the top of the darts. And I need to square across where that is. And again, just this little bit here, it doesn't need to go too far. So now we're going to draw in the shoulder lines. So you need to take your shoulder measurement and add 1. So I've got 11.5 centimetres for my measurement. So I need to add 1 to get 12.5. And then what I need to do is I need to get the ruler on that point there where the back neck is. And I need to move it around until my measurement hits this line that we've drawn at the back. So my shoulder plus 1 is 12.5. So you can see here where that 12.5 meets this line. I need to draw in my back shoulder. I then need to construct a dart on it so it fits well. So half of 12.5 is 6.25 or 6.25. So I need to just draw a little line there. And I need to draw a dart down from this line. So just draw straight down 5 centimetres and then half a centimetre either side, and then I just draw in my back shoulder dart, and that will just make sure that all of this back piece here fits really nicely. You need to then take the same shoulder measurement, don't add 1 this time, and do the same thing joining this point here to this front line. So 11.5 centimetres from here and I just move the ruler around until the 11.5 meets that line, and I join that. Don't worry that this angle looks quite extreme compared to this, because once you sew your sample and you close that dart, it'll bring this shoulder line up, which will match with this. It seems a bit of an odd position to put a dart, but I've just used this method for years and I feel like it gives a much better fit drawing it like this originally. So these are your shoulder points here. What you then need to do is take this measurement from this shoulder line to the armhole line and just find the halfway point. So 8.2 for me, and I'm just going to mark that position there. And on the front, take this measurement and divide it by 3. So I've got 16.8. I can't do that in my head, so use my calculator and I get 5.6. So I'm going to measure 5.6 up from this armhole line. And that puts the point there. And then you just need to draw in your armhole. You can use a curve ruler or you can just do it by eye. So just fill in that curve just to look like a natural armhole. I've not done a very good job of that, so let's rub that out and just have another go. That looks better. And then just do the same on the bottom halves. And then when you try your sample on, you'll see straight away if you've drawn this the right shape. If when you try your sample on you feel like it needs to be more cut out or more filled in, then just whatever you see on your sample, you just need to change on this pattern. So that is your bodice block complete now. You just need to add a little bit of waist shaping. So at the moment, this would just make a very straight sample. So you need to add some waist shaping in. What you need to do is take your bust measurement and subtract your waist measurement, and that gives you the difference between the bust and the waist, and then divide it in half because we've just got half here. So I'm left with 10 centimetres on mine. You need to kind of play around with where you think it should go dependent on your figure. So if you're quite busty, you might want to take a bit more off on this front dart position. If you're more athletic, then just do it quite evenly throughout, but it really depends on your figure. So with my 10 centimetres, I've already worked out how I want to distribute that 10 centimetres. So I'm going to take off 1.5 centimetres either side of this back waist position. I'm going to take 1.25 off front and back on the side, and I'm going to take 2.25 or 2.25 off either side of the front dart. And now all you need to do is just join these points up on this armhole line. So the back dart goes all the way up to the armhole line, so just join those positions. The side seam comes from these two positions here, so join them to that armhole position. So when you come to cut it out, you no longer need that line. Cut on these diagonal lines. And then your front dart join to these waist positions. And there we go, that is your bodice block complete. So you just need to make up a sample now and see how it fits, and if you need to do any adjustments, just go back to this and adjust it. If you've taken your body measurements well, it should fit like a glove. If anything is really off, then just check your body measurements in case you've written one down wrong or you might have done a calculation wrong. But it's just a case of working your way back and seeing where one of those measurements might have gone wrong along the way. Unfortunately, one wrong measurement could throw a lot of this off. So just take your time, measure yourself accurately, take your time with the calculations, and you should be fine. If you go onto my website, creativebobbin.com, you'll see all of the measurements and this drawn up that you can reference, that you'll be able to see a little bit clearer than keep pausing the video. So I've cut this out. I've put a seam allowance down the side and on the shoulders. I've cut the back on the fold because it's going to be a lot easier for you to do it up if you're pinning it at the front. So
cut it with a seam allowance on the front. So you just need to sew all your darts up, so your sides, your centre front and your shoulders, and then you're ready to try it on.
And this is the block sewn up. This is how it should look. It's not very glamorous, obviously. The darts should sit close to the neck here, just should fit well all around. The fit really depends on taking accurate measurements to start with and making sure everything is calculated correctly. If anything doesn't fit, just go back through the video and just check all your measurements and all your calculations and see if you can figure out where it might have gone wrong if it doesn't fit. If you can't, then please comment below and I'll see if I can help you figure it out.